Hey guys, today we're gonna take a look and do some explanation when it comes to the brand new kits of characters that are gonna be released in version 3.7, which will be the 3rd anniversary. First, we're gonna start off taking a look into the character Coppelia. I'm gonna show you a picture and explain what is happening there in just a second, but first let me tell you one thing. That is that Coppelia will not have normal incantations and not have a normal ultimate. Instead, she charges instruments with energy to release incantations. Moxie is replaced by synchronization. At the start of the round, Coppelia increases her self-synchronization. Okay, so we have instruments, an instrument area, and we have to charge these instruments with energy. Here, take a look at this picture and let me explain what we actually see here. You can see our AP area on top, just as it usually would be. Then we have something that we call the instrument area, which features your incantations. Every incantation is featured here from all the instrument characters present in the team, which are for now only Coppelia, and Regulus is also be turned into an instrument character with a Euphoria number 2 that is gonna be released in the 3rd anniversary. Now you can see that in this instrument area, Coppelia's incantation number 1 is present. Here you can see that for us to be able to cast this incantation, we would need to accumulate 2 mineral energy. Instrument characters are from different afflatuses. You can see here in our hand we have an energy present from the mineral afflatus, a mineral energy, if you will. And a star energy here is also present. That is because Regulus is a star afflatus character and from the instrument archetype. So those 2 energies, they will be accumulated into our hand, and we have to use these energies up or use them with AP, in fact, in order for us to produce enough of these energies to be able to cast our incantations. You can cast one incantation, like one mineral energy incantation this turn, and the second one in the next turn. Then, once you have accumulated 2 energy, mineral energy in fact, then you can use the Coppelia's incantation. It will be used automatically. If you would, for example, have accumulated 4 mineral energy, Coppelia would cast her incantation number 1 twice. That is a little bit of future music though, because we will probably have to wait for more characters from the instrument archetype that are from the mineral afflatus, so that we have multiple different characters that can work together when it comes to producing and accumulating these mineral energies, and then we can go completely nuts with it. But for now, since we only have Coppelia, it will not be as efficient, because our incantation number 1 will only be cast once, as we will have a little bit of trouble at least accumulating these energies on a frequent basis. But that's gonna be about it for that one. And you can see the synchronization below our HP bars for all instrument characters, right? Which are for now only Coppelia and Regulus. Every time one of those characters would cast one of their incantations, which uses up energy, they would accumulate this synchronization meter. Once this meter is fully filled, as you can see here with Regulus, they automatically will cast their ultimate on the turn that this synchronization hits the maximum amount. So that's gonna be about it. Now we have a very good idea how all of this stuff looks. The stuff that I just explained to you is explained here in a text format if you wish to read it out for yourself. Now let's go ahead and start off with reading and looking into what her insight actually does. When an ally triggers an instrument, based on the number of energy consumes, Coppelia increases her ultimate might. So she wants allies to use up their incantations to consume these energies, because whenever an ally would do that, Coppelia would increase her ultimate might. Then her insight number 3 says, when entering battle, increase instrument might of all allies. So every single instrument character will deal more damage with their incantations, and you increase your own synchronization. Beautiful. Okay, now let's take a look into what her incantations actually do. Incantation number 1 is called Finger Training, and what it does is, as you just saw in the picture, it needs 2 energy. Then it will deal damage to reality damage to one of your opponents based on the level of instrument energy consumption. So yeah, based upon how much energy you consume with this incantation, which will be 2, but you can also consume 4 if you cast it twice in a row, and that will deal extra reality damage and of course increase your synchronization. Needless to explain at that point. Then the instrument energy consumption keeps track of how much energy has been consumed by instruments. So yeah, as I said, the more and more energy you will consume with your instrument, the more and more damage you will deal. So this is a little bit of a scaling effect going on. Cool. Then we have her incantation number 2, that is called Vowel Basics. And what it does is the following. It needs no energy to be cast, but it exhausts. That means you can only use this incantation once per battle. It is a mass buff, and all allies enter unison. Unison is an increase in critical hit rate and an increase in critical damage based on how high Coppelia's critical damage number is to your entire team. So you provide critical damage and crit rate to your team. Very beneficial. Then, as I said, exhaust, that means you can only play this incantation here once per battle. Her ultimate is called Flux Finger Training. It deals reality damage to all enemies based on the stacks of interval step. So based on how much you actually increase your ultimate might, you will deal further reality damage to the main target. After attacking, all stacks of your ultimate might increases are consumed to increase the level of your instrument energy consumption and give instrument tuning to yourself and the ally directly behind yourself. The instrument tuning is, it decreases energy needed to trigger instruments. So whenever you would use your ultimate, your own incantations would become cheaper. For example, your incantation number 1 would then only consume 1 energy instead of 2 once you casted your ultimate once. And yeah, that's gonna be about it. If you cast your ultimate twice, that will not mean your incantation number 1 is now free. No, it is only instrument tuning 1. No matter how often you're gonna use your ultimate, that is not going to stack. Here, flux means after releasing the instrument, it changes to the corresponding incantation. Yeah, that you can completely ignore, right? That is self-explanatory. And that is gonna be how you play Coppelia. At release, she only will have Regulus as her partner, so her true potential is not fully unlocked right then and there. But still, this is a free character. You will have to invest into it, and you will need Regulus to pair with her. And then whenever future versions will release instrument archetype characters, those are going to become must-pull characters, especially the ones with the mineral afflatus or the star afflatus for that matter. So yeah, be ready for that, of course. No problem, since Coppelia is a free character and Regulus will be featured on the Euphoria banner. Next up, let's take a look at Ms.Stranger. She also brings like a brand new mechanic to this game. A little bit of a spoiler, she's a very flexible character. I have my preferred team with her, which I will tell you about. But this is mainly a character to excel at the content called Mains Bulletin. If you have trouble reaching the 10 million Mains Bulletin, but you would like to increase your performance there, Ms.Stranger is gonna be your pick. You can slot her into any team you would like. Now let's check her out a little bit. She's all about a special incantation that she generates by herself. Here, let's read it. That is her passive ability. At the start of the battle or at the start of the round after losing the special incantation, you generate this special incantation at the leftmost slot in the spell dock. I will explain this further, let's keep reading. This special incantation is locked at the beginning and cannot be moved or played. You cannot actively move or play this card. But at the start of the round, if this special incantation is at the rightmost slot in the spell dock, it gets played automatically and it dispels all control effects on Ms.Stranger. So let me explain to you how this works. You will generate a incantation, a special one, at the leftmost part on your spell dock. And you have to now play incantations to move this special incantation more and more and more to the right. So but turn by turn, you lose a bit of freedom when it comes to how you can play out your rotations. Because you will have to play the incantations at the right to this special incantation, so that this special incantation moves further and further and further. Once this special incantation reaches the very rightmost slot in the spell docks, it gets played. What does it do when it gets played? It does single target mental damage. This is an active incantation. It does not cost AP and it counts as an ultimate. Based on the actively used incantations and ultimates in the AP area, this strengthens these special incantation in 4 ways. Single attack and debuff, single targets, right? Single target attacks and single target debuffs increase the mental damage and further increase the mental damage on the main target. Then, if you would use mass attacks or mass debuffs, for mass attacks, you would increase the mental damage and increase the number of targets. Same for mass debuffs. For buffs, you increase the critical hit rate. For counter incantations, you increase the ultimate might. If you play heals, you increase crit damage, and for channel incantations, you increase the incantation might. So what does all of this mean? This incantation, whenever you would move it, it charges up on beneficial effects, like all of the effects that I just read out. So, for example, if you would like this special incantation to, when it triggers, when it reaches the rightmost position in your spell dock, when it activates, if you would like this, for example, to not hit just one target, but multiple targets, then you will have to increase the number of targets for this incantation. And the way you do this is by using mass attacks and mass debuffs. So attack incantations and debuff incantations will have to be used while moving this incantation to the right to increase the number of target it hits. If for example, like if you have 4 different enemies, then you would want this incantation to hit all 4 enemies, right? That means you will have to play at least 3 mass attacks or mass debuffs to increase the number of targets hit by this special incantation to 4. If you want to guarantee a crit by or from this special incantation, you shall play as many buff incantations to move the special incantation as you possibly can, right? And so on and so forth. Since this counts as an ultimate, it is very, very beneficial to play counter incantations as well to increase the ultimate might. You get the point here. And this is how Ms.Stranger plays. Let me repeat that, right? You generate this special incantation. You will have to play the on the left. You generate this special incantation on the very left. You will have to move it to the right, all the way down, right? By playing the incantations to the right of this special incantation. And once the special incantation reaches the very right of your spell dock, it will activate. Okay, and you can charge this in the way I have just explained. Cool. Now we can look into her actual incantations. Her incantation number 1 is called Woman in Cocoon. This does single target mental damage, and when at the left of this special incantation in the spell dock before played, you deal extra mental damage. When at the right, you gain self-preservation. Self-preservation does consumed when receiving the special incantation. Based on the stacks consumed, move the special incantation to the right and strengthen it. So, what you want to do with Ms.Stranger's incantation number 1 is you want to play this whenever it is to the right hand side of your special incantation, because then you would gain a stack of self-preservation. And when you receive this special incantation now, again after it is triggered, you will immediately move it to the right and strengthen it based on how many stacks you obtained by using your incantation 1 correctly. Cool. Her incantation number 2 is called Phototaxis Instinct. What it does is, it deals mental damage to all enemies. After hitting, you inflict a debuff called Self-Deception. What that does is, it decreases the damage resist of your opponent. When being attacked with the special incantation, the special incantation's critical hit rate and critical damage increases. Ms.Stranger's ultimate, called an Involuntary Remembrance, what it does is self-buff. Dispel all debuffs on Ms.Stranger and enter a status called Born Anew. Give yourself Silent Flutter. What is Born Anew? Born Anew says increases damage resist and damage bonus. When actively releasing your special incantation, you increase that special incantation's penetration rate. Silent Flutter is, after Ms.Stranger breaks an enemy's afflatus resistance by any actively casted incantation, you consume your Silent Flutter stacks to release an extra special incantation. This does not count as an extra action and has several stacks of all 4 strengthening. Okay, so that's what I meant with this character excels at Main's Bulletin, because whenever you break the enemy's afflatus resistance, right, this is the white bar that you have to deplete whenever you play Main's Bulletin, and then you actually gain a very, very beneficial effect here, because you just release an extra one of your special incantations. That is super, super, super strong. Don't underestimate that. And yeah, play this character if you can in Main's Bulletin. Anything else, this character can also be played in every single team you Kenny mentioned, you can slot her in as either the main or the sub DPS for any team in the game. The most beneficial thing though that comes to mind here first is to play this together with both Liang Yue and especially Chen Higuang, because look, you want to have as less incantations in your hand as possible, because then you can move your special incantation faster to the right and therefore trigger it more often. And this is what Ms.Stranger is all about. This will hit like an absolute freaking truck, you know what I mean? You want to trigger the special incantation as much as possible, and the less incantations you have in your hand, the better and more consistent and faster you will trigger this incantation. And remember, Chen Higuang removes incantations from your hand. You have a smaller hand size. He's the only character in the game that does that. Plus, since you play him in a follow-up attack team with like Liang Yue, for example, you will use a lot of incantations up very quickly as well, and all of your incantations are already enhanced due to Liang Yue. And the special incantation here from Ms.Stranger is also all about enhancing it as much as you possibly can, you know. And you can see here like buff incantations are very beneficial. We will play a lot of buff incantations with Liang Yue, and that increases the critical hit rate, right? Plus whatever like all the effects that Liang Yue's array gives to this incantation, it will be completely out of control nuts. So you could, I'm not saying you have to, or this is going to be the best in slot, that remains to be seen, but you could use it in the Liang Yue Chen Higuang team to replace Flutter Page there. I would take a strong guess here, hot take, this is going to be the best place for Ms.Stranger. Okay, but enough about her. Let's go and now take a look into the brand new limited character, Rhiannon. I will call this character Rhiannon because her name is actually awkward to pronounce for me. So the new limited character, Rhiannon, 6-star from the Beaster Flayers. Let's take a look into her passive first. That is key and very important here. It says that when Familiar Connections energy reaches a certain amount, Rhiannon casts and enters something called Hypersense before using incantations. Familiar Connection is a bar where you have to funnel energy into via certain means. Once you would reach a certain number of energy, you would gain Hypersense, and that is what you always want, because when in this status, gain an extra round of actions where the enemies cannot act. Before incantations come into effect in this round, a wormy blackberry summon will enter the incantation sequence, aka your rotation. You gain an extra turn whenever you charge enough energy, and then you gain an extra turn, and you gain something called Wormy Blackberry Summon. What is that? The Wormy Blackberry Summon is something that deals mental damage to all enemies based on the number of Meeting of Mind buffs. Further increases your damage. This attack guarantees an inflate disadvantage. What is Meeting of Minds? Meeting of Minds is a force field. It increases the inflate disadvantage multiplier of all allies. Then, at the start of the round, you gain Cooperating Cinch. What is that? Cooperating Cinch is, when consumed, you funnel energy into the Familiar Connection and you gain Meeting of Minds. Cool. So every single turn you will gain energy in order for you to at some point activate the Hypersense, which gives you an additional turn. Rhiannon is an always effective character. What does that mean? An always effective character is the following. Character counts as 5 different archetypes. In these 5 different archetypes we have Afterglow, Blood Tide, Dynamo, Impromptu, and the brand new archetype Instrument. So you can play Rhiannon in all 5 of those archetypes and she will perform just fine. That is pretty incredible. Those are 5 very dominant and pretty much the 5 best archetypes in the entire game, to say it as easy as possible. So that is pretty nuts. Then let's take a look into her incantation number 1. At the start of the round, you gain Meeting of Minds. Then her incantation number 3 says, when entering battle, you increase your self-moxie and you funnel energy into the familiar connection. At the end of the round, you consume the cooperating cinch to increase your moxie. Okay, very, very easy and straightforward on that one. All you have to truly understand is how to accumulate energy to funnel this into your familiar connection buff so that you can have an extra turn. Let's take a look at her incantations though. Her incantation number 1, called Gold Pink Spell, says the following. It deals mental damage to all enemies. Before attacking, you consume cooperating cinch to increase your self-attack. After evolving, this incantation also decreases critical defense of all enemies after attacking. Based on the number of Meeting of Minds, further decrease the critical defense. Her incantation number 2, Silent Array, says it's a mass buff. All allies gain Song of Birds. That means they increase incantation and ultimate might. You consume the cooperating cinch buff to increase your self maximum amount of HP. After evolving this, by the way, that means after upgrading the incantation to 2 or 3 stars. You also increase damage bonus of all allies, and based on the number of Meeting of Minds consumed, you further increase damage bonus. Cool. Your ultimate is called Sing the Carefree Song. It is a mass buff. All other allies gain Dust Brood Eagle. That means they increase their attack and their max HP based on Rhiannon's attack and max HP. That is very important when we build her resonance, because we want to, when we play her in Blood Tide for example, you would increase her maximum amount of HP as much as you possibly can. Just an example. Furthermore though, all self incantations are evolved for some rounds. Whoa. And will not consume AP. Holy crap, that is crazy good. But you don't deal damage with this ultimate, like straight up, it's more of a buff kind of thing. And that's gonna be about it for the newest character, limited character in fact, Rhiannon. So what does this character actually do? The main thing that she does is, of course, she buffs your team. She's a support. She increases or decreases the critical defense of your enemies. She increases attack and maximum HP of all of her allies. She increases damage bonus, right? These kind of things. She provides incantation and ultimate might. All these kinds of things. All wonderful, all pretty good. The main thing though is that she has a bar called Familiar Connections, and there you have to funnel energy into to obtain yourself the buff Hypersense. That Hypersense will give you an additional turn, and that's what she's all about. That's what she wants to accomplish. So how do you funnel energy into this Familiar Connection bar? Is by you consuming something called Cooperating Cinch. You obtain this every single start of the round. Every single turn you will gain 1 buff of this Cooperating Cinch. You will have to consume this Cooperating Cinch so that you funnel energy into the Familiar Connection. How do you consume this Cooperating Cinch? Is by using your incantations, either number 1 or number 2, actively. and that's gonna be about it. So you take up 1 AP from your team every single turn, and that's pretty much all you do, right? And yeah, you give your team an extra turn. That is giga broken, that no other character does this, right? And this is very, very overpowered. So in what team, based on the information that we have here, would you play her? Where would she best fit? Honestly, we have to look at the teams. I would right out of the gate not recommend you to play her in Lingering Glow, because she does not apply burn and she doesn't help with filling the afterglow meter, right? The bar. She doesn't fill that. She doesn't profit from this afterglow meter being filled either. She doesn't help the team in good ways. You would be not efficient to replace a character like Lawrence Butterfly in Lingering Glow with Rhiannon. Blood Tide, that would be much better, because you can replace a character like, for example, Sentinel, right? That would be the best replacement. And since you increase the maximum amount of HP for all of your allies, that increases all of your allies' effectiveness by a lot, especially Nautica's with her newly established Euphoria update. So Nautica would profit more from Rhiannon's max HP increases than she would profit from the bullets that Sentinel provides. So here, that is very, very good. Plus ultimate incantation, everything here that Rhiannon does, Nautica loves this pretty much more than any other character in the game. So that is a very, Blood Tide is a very, very, very good place to play Rhiannon. Then in Dynamo, yeah, you shall not replace Ulrich there. Or if you play Corvus and Brumé, those characters do not get replaced. The only slot that you could really fill there with Rhiannon would be the slot of Sharon. Would you want to replace Sharon? You know the answer is absolutely not, right? So yeah, don't play her in Dynamo either. Then in Impromptu, yeah, here you can make a very, very strong argument, because you would, for the time being, replace Mercuria. That's actually an easy no-brainer. And since we have planned Impromptu, we would play the planned Impromptu in stages where we have the Afflatus advantage anyways. That is incredibly good, because remember that we increase the Afflatus advantage multiplier of all allies with Rhiannon, right? And Rhiannon, even though not being from the plant Afflatus herself, she's a beast Afflatus, she has the guaranteed Afflatus advantage anyways. So Impromptu, that is actually a very, very good spot. The plant Promptu in particular. That is even better, to be honest, than in Blood Tide, at least on release of this character in version 3.7, because we replace Mercuria. That is a better character to replace than a Sentinel would, right? Sentinel is more beneficial for the Blood Tide team than Mercuria is for Plant Promptu. So there we go. An instrument archetype, yeah, of course, that is needless to explain. She would be very beneficial there. The problem is that she is a beast Afflatus. So she would accumulate beast energy. We want to accumulate a star energy or mineral energy. Adding a third energy here with the beast energy is, yeah, like not the very best thing to do. But you would still, again, for the time being, get away with it very, very good, because we only have 2 characters with Coppelia and Regulus for this archetype. So adding a third character in here and then play a sustain of our choice is super duper good. Okay, so there we have it, right? Pulling for Rhiannon is, yeah, of course, because of the free turn that we get every now and then, an absolute no-brainer. But again, right, we can for the time being boost our plan prompto. We can make playing the new archetype instrument way more beneficial. And let's say, right, let's speculate a little bit. I mean, it's not true speculation because it is bound to happen in the future that, yeah, Plan Prompto will get their signature support character. It's probably gonna be Kakania whenever she receives the Euphoria update. Then the team is full, right? But for the time being, we can play Rhiannon there. Instrument, we can play Rhiannon there as well for the time being. Again, in the future, as time goes on, the team will be full. And then Rhiannon, yeah, will not have to go, but should leave the team. And when that happens, we can put her into Blood Tide and replace Sentinel there, right? So you get the point. You have a lot of teams here, 4 I would even say, that you always replace the weakest link on the team and put Rhiannon in there. Boom. And that's gonna be the most efficient way for not only for these teams, but also to use Rhiannon. And there we go. That's it for the video, guys. I hope that was fun and informative. If you have any questions or you wanna talk about anything, do this in the comment section down below. If you have a question that would need a little bit of a deep dive answer, then please join the Discord server and ping me there with your question. But that's it for me for today, guys. I hope that video was fun and informative. If you like Reverse 1999 content in general, please consider leaving a follow on my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until next time, take care of yourselves, have a great day, and we love this game.